Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are jumping into one of the all-time great adventure stories, a legendary race that all started with a simple, almost impossible bet: Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days.
So, think about this for a second. What would it actually take to travel around the entire world in just 80 days? Back in 1872, this question wasn't just some fantasy. It was suddenly, maybe, possible. It was all about engineering, logistics, sheer willpower. But for our main character, it wasn't really about any of that. For him, it was just simple math.
And this is where our story kicks off. Not with some daring adventurer, but with maybe the most predictable man in all of London, Phileas Fogg. Seriously, this guy's life was run like a Swiss watch.
And you don't have to take my word for it. His new valet, Jean Passepartout, said he'd seen wax figures at Madame Tussauds with more life in them. Now, the funny thing is, Passepartout, who used to be a circus performer, took this job because he wanted a quiet, predictable life. Oh boy, was he in for a surprise. I mean, just look at this schedule. This wasn't a routine, it was a program running on a machine. The guy he hired Passepartout to replace, he got fired, get this, for bringing Fogg his shaving water at 84 degrees instead of 86. A 2-degree difference? For Fogg, that wasn't just a simple mistake, it was a total system failure.
But this whole clockwork existence? Well, it was about to get completely smashed to pieces. And it all started with a casual chat at his very exclusive gentleman's club. So, the big news everyone was talking about was this huge robbery at the Bank of England. We're talking £55,000. That's millions in today's money. And at Fogg's club, the debate wasn't really about who did it, but how fast the thief could escape. The consensus was that the world had grown smaller, with steamships and railways, making a clean getaway almost impossible. And right in the middle of all this chatter, Phileas Fogg quietly chimes in. He agrees, yes, the world has gotten smaller. So much smaller, in fact, that you could now travel all the way around it in just 80 days. And he wasn't just guessing. He was looking at an itinerary printed right there in the newspaper, made possible by this brand new railway across India. You can imagine how his friends reacted. They basically left him off. 80 days? No way. They started listing everything that could go wrong. Bad weather, shipwrecks, train delays, you name it. A schedule like that? It's pure fantasy, only works on paper. But for every problem they threw at him, Fogg had the simplest, most confident answer. Just 2 words. All included. In his mind, he'd already calculated for all of it. See, for Phileas Fogg, there was no such thing as an unforeseen delay. And just like that, things got serious. A wager was put on the table. £20,000. That's an absolutely insane amount of money. Literally half of everything Fogg owned. All of it, bet on him being able to circle the globe and walk back into that club in 80 days. And Fogg, being Fogg, didn't waste a single moment. The bet was on. He didn't hesitate. The journey started that very night. The train was leaving in just a few hours. So he just goes home and completely blows his new valet's minds. We are going around the world, he says. Poor Passepartout, who literally just wanted a quiet life, is suddenly packing a bag for a global tour. And then Fogg hands him the bag, which, by the way, has the other £20,000 of his fortune in it, in cash. Okay, so as Fogg and Passepartout are racing out of London, a huge problem is brewing behind them. See, Fogg's sudden departure, all that cash, it starts to look really, really suspicious to some people. Because you see, there's this detective from Scotland Yard, a guy named Fix, waiting in Suez. He's got one job: catch the bank robber, and he is absolutely convinced the thief is going to pass right through his port. And who should walk right up to him but Phileas Fogg, getting his passport stamped just to prove he's on schedule. The moment Fix sees him, he's positive. This is his guy. The description fits perfectly. So he fires off a telegraph to London. I've got him. Send the arrest warrant to Bombay now. And honestly, you can't really blame him. Look at the comparison. A well-dressed gentleman with polished manners who left London in a hurry? It's a perfect match. To Detective Fix, this whole around the world in 80 days thing isn't a bet. It's the most brilliant escape plan he's ever seen. And just like that, Fogg's race against the clock is now a race from the law. Meanwhile, Fogg has no idea any of this is happening. He has no clue he's a wanted man. He's just focused on the schedule. But he's about to hit his first major roadblock deep in the jungles of India. So that amazing new railway across India, the one that made this whole trip possible in the first place, yeah, turns out it wasn't quite finished. The tracks just stop, right in the middle of the jungle, with 50 miles to go to the next station. Now, anyone else would be freaking out, right? But not Fogg. He's completely calm. He just says it was foreseen. Not this exact problem, of course, but he knew something would go wrong, and that's why he made sure to get ahead of schedule by 2 days on the sea voyage. So what's the solution when your train track runs out? Well, if you're Phileas Fogg, it's simple. You just find the nearest village and buy an elephant. For £2,000, that's a huge chunk of the money he's betting, all spent on an elephant to get them through the jungle.
But as they're making their way through the forest, they run into something way more serious than an unfinished railroad. They stumble upon a procession, and they quickly realize they're about to witness a horrific ritual, a forced human sacrifice. And Fogg, this man of pure logic and timetables, looks at the situation, says he has 12 hours to spare, and decides they have to save this young woman, Aouda. It shows there's more to him than just numbers. So they come up with a plan, but their first attempt to sneak in fails. Too many guards. Their second plan, breaking through a wall, almost gets them caught. Things are looking pretty grim. They're about to light the funeral pyre. It seems like all hope is lost. And then, suddenly, a figure rises up from the pyre itself, grabs the young woman, and carries her away through the shocked crowd. Who was it? It was Passepartout. In an absolutely brilliant move, he'd hidden himself on the pyre and pretended to be the dead husband coming back to life. Just pure genius.
So they saved Aouda, which is amazing. But it cost them. It cost Fogg those 2 precious days he had in hand. Now he's back to being exactly on schedule, no room for error. Plus, Detective Fix is waiting for him in the next port, warrant in hand. So you have to wonder, with his buffer gone and the police closing in, is there any way he can still win this bet?